cabin settles with a long, exhaling sigh, the mechanical hum of the engines dropping to a whisper that vibrates gently against the floorboards. Outside the oval window, the light has deepened into the specific slate-gray twilight of the north, a color that feels less like the absence of sun and more like a heavy, comforting blanket pulled over the horizon. The air inside the plane shifts, cooler now, carrying the faint, crisp promise of pine and rain even before the seal is broken. A soft chime rings overhead, a singular note that signals the end of motion and the beginning of arrival. My bag feels solid and grounding as I lift it, the leather strap finding its familiar groove on my shoulder. Moving into the aisle is not a rush, but a slow shuffling of weight, a collective stretch of tired limbs. I step across the threshold of the aircraft, leaving the recycled warmth behind for the hollow, metallic coolness of the jet bridge. The floor here is ribbed rubber, absorbing the sound of footsteps, turning the exit into a muted procession. The terminal opens up like a cavern of glass and polished stone. Here, the rhythm of the journey changes. It is no longer about speed or altitude, but about the steady, hypnotic cadence of moving through a space designed for transit. The floor beneath my shoes is smooth terrazzo, speckled with flecks of gray and white. Each step produces a clean, distinct tap, a sound that echoes briefly before being swallowed by the vastness of the ceiling. My suitcase wheels hum against the surface. It is a continuous, low-frequency drone that travels up the handle and into my palm, a tactile reminder of forward motion. I navigate the long corridors without needing to look at signs. The path is intuitive, a straight line drawn in light and architecture. The walkway stretches out, a moving belt of black rubber. I step onto it, and the sensation of walking ceases, replaced by a smooth, gliding drift. The handrail moves at the exact same speed as my body, a synchronization that feels oddly soothing. To my left, large panes of glass reveal the airport operations, but the details are blurred by the dim light. I focus instead on the immediate surroundings. The transition from the hard terrazzo to a section of low-pile carpet changes the acoustic landscape instantly. The tapping of shoes vanishes, replaced by a soft, muffled thudding. The silence deepens. The hum of the suitcase wheels becomes a hush, a whisper of friction against fabric. This is a quiet valley of the journey, a space where thought is unnecessary, and the only requirement is to let the architecture carry me forward. I reach the end of the carpeted section and step back onto the tile. The rhythm returns. Tap, tap, tap. The weight of the bag on my shoulder shifts slightly, a gentle pressure that keeps me present. I pass through the sliding glass doors of the exit, and the air changes again. This time, It is the true air of Sweden. It greets me not with a gust, but with a stillness. It is cool, carrying the scent of damp pavement and distant trees. The transit to the city is a blur of motion, a seamless slide from the airport to the heart of Uppsala. The train cuts through the landscape, a silver needle threading through a tapestry of dark green forests and red wooden houses that flicker past like lantern slides. The vibration of the train is different from the plane. It is rhythmic, a swaying cradle that rocks back and forth, lulling the senses. When I finally step out onto the street in Uppsala, the ground feels ancient and solid. The modern pavement gives way to older textures, the uneven but steady surface of cobblestones that have settled over centuries. The city is quiet. It is not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of respect, as if the buildings themselves are resting. I find the heavy wooden door of the hotel and push it open. The latch clicks with a satisfying weight. Inside, the room is a sanctuary of pale wood and white linen. I lower my bag to the floor, the tension in my shoulder releasing as the weight disappears. The bed waits, a vast expanse of white. I do not rush. I sit on the edge first, pressing a hand against the mattress to test its firmness. It yields perfectly. I swing my legs up, the fabric of the duvet cool and smooth against my skin. There is no need to unpack, no need to organize. Those are tasks for a brighter hour. For now, I let the layers of the journey fall away. The sounds of the airport, the hum of the train, and the tap of shoes on stone all fade into a singular, peaceful silence. I pull the sheet up, the fabric crisp and heavy, and let my eyes close, drifting toward the deep, restorative stillness that waits within the dark. Gravel crunches beneath my boots. It is a slow, deliberate sound that marks my entry into the Universitetsparken. The air here holds a specific kind of stillness, cool and smelling faintly of damp earth and old paper. The light is turning a soft, hazy blue as the afternoon begins to surrender to the evening. Tall trees stand like sentinels around the perimeter, their branches bare and sketching intricate black lace against the sky. Near the center of the grove, the ground rises slightly to meet the ancient stones. I approach the largest one. It does not stand tall like a monument, but rests heavy in the grass, almost swallowed by the earth that holds it. This is the sunken Urby stone. My fingers brush the surface. It is cold. The granite is coarse against my skin, pitted by centuries of frost and rain. I trace the curve of the serpent body carved into the rock. The red paint filling the grooves is dull in the twilight. A rusty line guiding my hand along the loop of the dragon. There is a texture here that feels permanent, a roughness that resists the smoothing passage of time. Leaving the stones, the path widens. Ahead, the twin spires of the Domkirchen pierce the gray sky. They seem to pull the clouds down with them. I cross the street and stand before the west portal. The doors are massive, iron-bound and formidable, but it is the stone framing them that draws the eye. It is gray Gotland limestone. Leaning in close, the surface reveals its secret history. Tiny shapes are embedded in the rock. Spiral shells, fragments of ancient sea life frozen in the architecture. I press my palm flat against a column. The stone sucks the warmth from my hand. It feels smooth, polished by the wind and the touch of thousands who have stood here before. I turn away from the heavy doors and let my feet find a rhythm on the cobblestones. One step, then another. The sound of my walking is the only thing interrupting the quiet. Click, echo, click, echo. The wind moves through the high branches of the trees, creating a soft, rushing sound that rises and falls like a distant tide. I keep my pace slow. There is no rush to get anywhere. The light is fading, turning the gray stones to a deep charcoal and the sky to a bruised purple. I breathe in the cold air. It fills my chest, sharp and clean. I breathe out, watching the white vapor dissipate into the evening. My coat feels heavy on my shoulders, a comforting weight that shields me from the chill. I continue along the perimeter of the great building. The wall beside me is a constant, unmoving presence. I run my hand along the rough brickwork as I walk, feeling the grit and the mortar. Step, breath, step, breath. The world narrows down to this simple cadence. There are no other voices, no cars, just the steady beat of my own movement through the twilight. The shadows lengthen across the path, stretching out to meet the darkness gathering under the trees. I stop for a moment to adjust my scarf, feeling the wool scratch softly against my neck. Then I resume the walk. The rhythm returns instantly. It is a hypnotic cycle of motion and rest, a lullaby of footsteps on ancient stone. I watch the ground pass beneath me, counting the paving stones without numbers, just acknowledging each one as it arrives and departs. The cold touches my cheeks, but the movement keeps a small fire of warmth in my center. The rhythm eventually delivers me to the base of the university main building. In the center of the park stands a bronze monument. It is Jaeger, looking out over the city, but my eyes drift lower to the plinth. Beneath the standing man sits a woman. She is the embodiment of thought. She holds a scroll, her head bowed in deep contemplation. I linger here. The bronze has weathered to a deep, matte green. Rain has left dark streaks down her robes, like shadows painted by the weather. She seems completely absorbed in her own silence, ignoring the open square around her. The light has nearly gone now. I drift toward the edge of the district where the water flows. The Firis River is a dark ribbon moving silently toward the south. I find a bench near the water's edge and settle onto the cold wood. Above the city, the cathedral bells begin to toll. The sound is deep and resonant, a vibration that I feel in my chest more than I hear with my ears. It rolls over the water, fading slowly into the night. I close my eyes and let the last reverberation settle into the darkness. The morning light in Uppsala does not break. Instead, it spills. It rolls down the pastel facades of the old buildings like warm honey, thick and slow, catching on the rough texture of the plaster. I step out into the district, the oldest quarter of Uppsala, where the streets were laid out before engines or electricity. The air holds a crispness here, a cool pocket of stillness preserved by the shadows of the cathedral spires that loom somewhere high above, out of sight, but always felt. My shoes find purchase on the cobblestones. These are not the uniform pavers of modern cities, but round, river-smoothed stones that demand a slower pace. To rush here would be to stumble. I turn away from the main thoroughfare and slip into the narrow throat of Asgrand. The alley creates its own twilight. The walls of the buildings lean in, tall and protective, cutting a jagged strip of blue sky far overhead. Sound changes in this corridor. The city hum is dampened, replaced by the intimate scrape of grit beneath my soles and the distant, rhythmic dripping of a gutter somewhere unseen. I am looking for a small detail, a secret hidden in the brickwork. Near the corner of the street, close to the ground, the architecture offers a small whimsy. It is the Katgluggen, a small basement window, an arched opening in the wall. It is no larger than a shoebox, yet it holds a quiet fame in this town. I crouch low to see it. 3 small steps lead down to the tiny grate. It is dark inside, a dusty void where a fictional tailless cat might seek refuge from the rain. I do not touch the brick. I simply look, tracing the curve of the mortar with my eyes. I memorize the way the red clay has chipped over decades, revealing the darker, harder stone beneath. It is a portal to nowhere, a story solidified in masonry. Rising from the crouch, I leave the alley behind. The street widens, and the light returns. Now begins the long drift toward the river and the gardens. I let my hands fall deep into my pockets. The fabric of my coat is cool against my wrists. I do not check a map. I do not look for street signs. There is only the sensation of movement, a steady pendulum rhythm of the legs. Left foot, right foot. The ground is level here, the cobblestones giving way to flatter paving slabs that make no sound. The wind is low, barely a breath, brushing against my cheek with the scent of damp earth and river water. I focus entirely on the cadence of the walk. It is a simple machine, this body in motion, The weight shifts from heel to toe. The knees bend and straighten. There is no destination in this moment, only the process of traversing space. A bird calls out 2 sharp notes, but I do not look up. I watch the play of shadows on the ground. They stretch and retract as the clouds above drift across the sun. A long shadow of a lamppost slides over my shoes. Then the shadow of a birch tree, dappled and shaking. Then the solid, angular shadow of a wall. I breathe in for a count of 4. The air travels down, filling the chest, expanding the ribs. I hold it for a second, feeling the stillness in the center of the motion. I breathe out for a count of 4. The shoulders drop. The tension in the neck unspools. There is a hypnosis in this walking. The visual noise of the city blurs into a soft wash of color. Terracotta, cream, slate gray, green. The colors merge and separate as I pass. I am not thinking of the history of the stones or the names of the architects. I am only thinking of the step, and the next step, and the next. The rhythm becomes the only clock that matters. It creates a silence in the mind, a wide, open plain where thoughts can settle like dust. Gradually, the rhythm slows. The wooden gates of the Linnaeus garden stand open. Stepping across the threshold is like stepping into a diagram of order. This was the workshop of the man who named the natural world, and the garden reflects a mind that sought to categorize chaos. The gravel paths are straight lines, dividing the earth into precise, geometric beds. Everything has a place. I move to the perennial beds. The soil is dark, almost black, rich with compost and care. Green stems rise in polite rows. I am searching for the shy wild tulip. It is not a flower that shouts. It does not have the wide, open face of a sunflower or the complexity of a rose. There, near the edge of the bed, a slender stalk curves downward. The flower hangs its head, facing the soil rather than the sun. It is a dusty yellow, streaked with green on the outer petals, hiding the brighter gold within. I lean in. The petals are closed tight, guarding their center. It looks heavy, like a bell that is too tired to ring. The wind nudges it, and the flower sways on its thin stem, nodding in a silent agreement with the breeze. It is delicate, seemingly too fragile for this northern climate, yet it stands anchored in the dark earth. I linger there, watching the yellow head bob in the air currents. Leaving the garden, the pull of the water becomes stronger. The Firas River is near. I cross the street and find the bank. The water is a dark mirror, moving swiftly but without turbulence, carrying fallen leaves toward the south. I find a wooden bench facing the current and settle into the seat. The air has warmed. The sun is higher now, touching the back of my neck. From across the water, the sound begins. The great bell of the cathedral swings. The note is deep, bronze, and heavy. It travels through the air, vibrating against the sternum. One toll, then a pause, long enough for the sound to decay into a hum. Then a second toll. The sound wraps around the district, holding the streets and the river in a momentary embrace. I close my eyes and listen to the fade, waiting for the silence to return. The evening light catches the pink facade of Uppsala Castle, turning the rough stucco into a canvas of warm apricot and deep rose. It is a steep ascent to get here, but the air grows clearer with every step up the gravel path. The heavy stone walls loom large, remnants of the 16th century that have stood watch over the city through snowstorms and midsummer nights alike. There is no rush to reach the summit. The gravel creates a steady, rhythmic crunch underfoot, a sound that marks the slow passage of time. At the top, the Stillness bastion offers a flat, open platform. This old defensive point no longer guards against enemies, but instead serves as a balcony for the evening sky. Below, the city spreads out in a grid of slate roofs and copper spires, with the twin towers of the cathedral piercing the horizon like dark needles against the fading blue. The wind is stronger up here. It carries the scent of pine from the ridge and the damp freshness of the botanical gardens resting in the valley below. A few meters away stands the wooden belfry housing the Gunilla bell. It is a heavy, dark shape against the twilight. Tradition holds that this bell sings out over the plains twice a day, and the time is drawing near to 9 in the evening. Leaning against the rough brickwork of the bastion wall, the weight becomes an activity in itself. The cold seeps from the stone into the fabric of a coat, a grounding sensation that connects the body to the earth. Then the mechanism shifts. A groan of timber, a creak of iron. The Gunilla bell swings. The first toll is not just a sound, but a physical pressure. A deep, resonant bronze note rolls out from the bastion, heavy and unhurried. It vibrates in the chest. Before the air can settle, the second toll arrives, layering over the echo of the first. It is a slow, mournful, yet comforting rhythm. The sound travels down the hill, sweeping over the rooftops, signaling the end of the day's labor. It tells the city to rest. For a minute, there is nothing but that deep, metallic heartbeat pulsing through the atmosphere. Then the final ring decays into silence, leaving the ears humming with a phantom tone. I turn from the bastion and begin the descent, letting gravity guide the way toward the river. The path downward is a long, gentle slope, paved with asphalt that has cooled in the shadows of the trees. This is a time for simple movement. One foot places itself in front of the other, finding a rhythm that matches the slow exhale of breath. There are no decisions to make here, only the black ribbon of the path winding through the parkland. To the left, large deciduous trees form a canopy that filters the last of the ambient light, creating patterns of gray and charcoal on the ground. The walk continues without pause. Steps fall in a predictable cadence. The muscles in the legs lengthen and contract, a familiar and soothing cycle of motion. The surroundings blur into a soft periphery of green and shadow. It is a long stretch of solitude where the mind does not need to focus on names or dates or destinations. There is only the sensation of movement, the scuff of shoes on the pavement, and the gradual leveling of the ground as the hill flattens out. The air grows denser, heavier with moisture, signaling the approach of water. The temperature drops a fraction of a degree, cooling the skin on the face. This transition is gradual, a slow fade from the dry heights of the castle ridge to the humid embrace of the river valley. The walking becomes automatic, a drift through the quiet spaces between the street lamps that have just begun to flicker into life. The silence of the park gives way to a low, continuous rumble. It is the voice of the Firis River, specifically the Uneventful Rapids. The sound grows from a whisper to a steady roar as the trees part. Standing on the Dombron, the old stone bridge that arches over the water, the noise wraps around everything. Below the parapet, the river churns. The water is dark, almost black, but where it hits the weir, it shatters into white foam that glows in the artificial light of the bridge lamps. The rapids do not surge and retreat like ocean waves. They are constant. It is a wall of white noise that washes away thoughts. The vibration of the falling water travels up through the granite pillars of the bridge and into the soles of the feet. Leaving the bridge, a smaller path leads down to the water's edge, where wooden docks jut out into the calmer sections of the flow. The wood is weathered, silver gray and smooth to the touch. Sitting at the edge of the dock, the roar of the rapids dampens into a distant background hum. Here, the water moves like dark oil, sliding past the pilings with barely a ripple. The reflection of the streetlights stretches across the surface of the river, long pillars of gold wobbling in the current. The damp scent of wet wood and river reeds rises up. It is a place to simply be. The flow of the Firis is endless, moving north to south, carrying the history of the city out toward the lake. The eyes lose focus, tracking a single swirl of water as it drifts downstream, dissolves, and reforms. The evening settles completely, wrapping the riverbank in a comfortable, heavy darkness that feels like a soft blanket pulled up to the chin.